What is up, guys? William here, BeyondGymWalls.com. I want to make a quick tutorial worksheet or workshop, whatever you want to call it, on abs and what I believe in, what I think you should be doing, what I do not do, why I do not do it, and how you could be hurting yourself doing all these crunches that you do, okay? Starting off, I don't train my abs the way most people do. A lot of people spend maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours a week training their abs specifically. I think that's basically a waste of time. They think doing that is going to get you to the point where you have a six-pack, where you're shredded, and it's very, very, very far from the truth. Eating is your number one. Fitness, exercise, the things that you choose to do in here to target that area is number two, okay? And there's a way of going about it that's going to make you the most functional athlete that you can be, whether you are a legit NFL, whatever, or you're a weekend warrior, or you just like to get in shape. You know, it all depends on what you're doing and making sure you're doing it right, and listen to someone else's opinion on that, okay? So basically, what you know, excuse me, this is your abs, got a little chest here. If you're lucky, you got an 8-pack. I don't have an 8-pack, I'm not lucky, so it's not me. This is your waist right here. These are your legs. Okay, so basically what you're looking at, when people do abs, they think of this right here. This is all they focus on. So they want to do crunches, a million crunches, whatever it takes, leg raises, you know, side to sides, doing bicycle crunches, whatever it takes. They're trying to get this burned up and ripped out, okay? They don't really know a lot of other things that make up your core, your transverse abdominis. This is your main part. You've got things that wrap around all in this area here that gives you that structure that allows you to stand up straight without too much of a sway back or being hunched over. And there's a reason why people over the years, and people who are training walk around the gym and they're looking like this, or vice versa, they're kind of curled over like this and their chest sticking out and their back's all rounded out back. There's a reason for that. Not everything comes from abs, but this can correct a lot of issues, especially with your back, if you have back issues and stuff like that. Training your abs the right way and not overtraining them can be the key, okay? So basically, I've talked about before in videos, you have hip flexors, and this is kind of the general area where these hip flexors are at. What these are used for is bringing the legs up, leg raises, doing things like that, doing bicycle crunches. You're working your hip flexors in order to bring that leg up, okay? So what happens is, people who train abs all the time, this area right here gets used a whole lot because they're trying to get this shredded here. What happens, if I showed you a side profile, it's a head, we'll call this a hip, this is their knee, that's their foot, okay? Hopefully you can see that. Basically, so your hip flexor kind of comes up, attaches here, you're working it on your abs, you're working here. What happens is, the more crunches you do, the more focus you're working on here, you end up overworking and putting this area right here in a bind. So basically, when I say bind, if I were to cut your back muscles, we'll call them, and kind of just let your stomach take over, obviously you're gonna fling forward. But what happens is, if you don't have good structure back here and all you do is work this, it's going to pull you forward. So everything's going to be this way, okay? Because you overwork this. You got it tight, thinking, okay, if I keep doing crunches, then that's what's going to get me that six-pack. That's what's going to get me to the point where you can see it really, really well. And that's wrong. All you're doing is just making that muscle stronger, of course, and tighter, which is going to pull you forward. If you're lacking, if you're not doing what you should be doing back here, you're going to be hunched over. You're going to be pulled forward naturally. That's just what's going to happen. That can end up tilting your pelvis back and giving you all kind of issues or tilting your pelvis forward. I'm sorry. That could be giving you all kind of issues that you don't want. So, how I train for abs, and this is kind of something that some people follow this, some people don't necessarily follow it. I train a very functional way of doing my abs. So when it comes to doing things like that, deadlifts, squats, I'll do planks, I'll do things like walkouts or TRX stuff that involves my entire body. Instead of necessarily isolating this one area right here, when you go back to your core, when you come back here, instead of just focusing here, I try to get everything, okay? And this is front and back. This is not just working the front part, but it's working everything. So I'm trying to make my all the way around 360 degrees as strong as possible. So doing things like planks, doing things like TRX exercises, doing things like sledgehammer swings and deadlifts and squats. All these things work on the structure and the rigidity of your core. Okay, so in return, you're gonna have a six-pack because you're building that strength. So you're gonna get that strength and that tone. But of course, supplemented with that proper eating is going to help you out with that. So, going back to what you should be doing again, do not overwork your abs. Do not think so much front right here, try and get that six-pack to pop out so you crunch so much. Think of your whole body, okay? Think of things, doing squats, doing deadlifts. Focus on what you're doing while doing those lifts instead of just saying, okay, I got to spend the next 45 minutes doing crunches so I can get my six-pack. Think about what your core is doing when you're doing those big lifts, okay? Because again, if you're eating right and you're working out hard, you're doing heavier weights, you're gonna see that six-pack. You're gonna get that stomach that you want. Now there's a side note. To people who like to do heavy lifts, doing things like squats, doing things like deadlifts, an extremely heavy amount of weight, there are ab exercises for you that you should be doing in order to strengthen that core. Because again, of course, if all you do is squats, you have to train for a heavy squat. You have to train for a heavy deadlift. You just don't just go into a heavy deadlift not really knowing what you're really doing or what's going to happen to your core while doing them. So you have to train for that. You have to make everything else just as strong as your lower back or as your legs or as your upper body, whatever you're kind of working. So when it comes to people who lift heavy, you want to do basically heavy abs. So doing things that again are not trying to leave out your hip flexors, leave your legs out and focus on isolating things, adding extra weight. You can do a lot of band exercises you can do, walkouts, planks, stuff like that. There's actually a really cool stability ball exercise with a cable weight that you can do that's going to actually focus on the area, and you can add in that weight to build that area stronger and make it more rigid. So when you have that extra weight on your back, you know, 500-600 pounds, whatever, or just 300 pounds on your back, you're going to prepare yourself doing these kind of things, okay? Not doing 1,000 mini crunches or anything like that, okay? WilliamBeyondGymWalls.com. Don't be confused on what abs you're doing. Make sure you're doing them right. Do not overwork them because you will look goofy. All right? Peace.